in this episode.
And the main thing is, I get it. Nobody wants to be told that their investment sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So you just bought like $1,000 PSA Gen 5 and you slapped on a $500 like rail onto it. And then I come along and say, yeah, the PSA guns are trash and the rail you bought doesn't hold zero. I understand why you're mad at it. I get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm still going to say it because I want somebody that's, every day somebody logs on to YouTube and tries to find some information on this commercial product that they want to spend their hard-earned money on.
In an obtuse world, Mark and Jefe will combine military, law enforcement, and general FUD knowledge to keep you vertical. Welcome to the Live, Laugh, Larp podcast.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Thanks for joining us on another edition of the Live, Laugh, Larp podcast. We really do appreciate you guys taking the time to sit with us, drive with us. I don't know what you're doing at this moment, but whatever it is, thank you so much for listening.
Sit on the toilet.
You probably, I don't know. How long do you sit on the toilet?
2.5 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
Did your legs not, do they fall asleep?
Squat a potty.
Oh, yeah, right. Do you like Slav squat while you're doing that?
Oh, yeah. This is the hard bass, drink kvass.
So we've got, as you can tell, we've got Jefe in the house, man. Appreciate it. How's everything going on your side?
Man. Yeah, two under two.
Yeah.
It's a whirlwind, man.
Yeah.
I don't even know what day it is.
Yeah. We have a great guest this time, and I'm really happy that he's been able to join us. He's been extremely flexible. Our schedules have been very chaotic in trying to get this episode recorded, to say the least. But I think it's going to be a good one. We've got some individuals that have differing points of view, and I think that it might spur some good conversation at the very least. But one of the biggest things that we need to take a second to say is that we actually have a new sponsor for the channel, and that is going to be XS Sights, and we really do appreciate them jumping on board to sponsor this podcast for the next little bit anyway. Jefe, I know you
Yep. All my this cliche sounds, all my carrier revolvers have XS sights on it. And if you have like any sort of J frame that has a removable front sight, the XS Big Dot is a game changer. Mm-hmm. They worked with Lipsies on the UC guns to put XS Big Dots and like an actual rear sight on those. And then I just got a set for my Model 19 carry comp. So nice. They are fantastic. I'm a huge fan of like the blacked out rears, and the big colorful sights are great. Mm-hmm. I guess combat sights are they're not as, they're just a big dot that floats in the ether. So really enjoy them. I have nothing but great things to say about them. If you have a carry revolver, or even they have for Glocks, I think they have them for pretty much any platform you can think of that uses iron sights. Yep. They even probably have some AK ones, I think
they do.
So
actually, I think they do.
It's just a great, easy upgrade. They're relatively affordable, and for those that still like using iron sights, check out XS.
Yeah, XS sights. So again, they have the big dots. I have a set of suppressor heights sights on my Glock 19, and then the intro lady, Miss Nan, she has a set for her PDP. The question is, are you in the market for another set?
I don't have another gun to put. Actually, yeah, I do. I need one for my Glock 19.
And here's the kicker. You guys can save 20% if you're interested in picking up some XS sights. Just use the code LARP, LARP. I'll leave that down in the description for you guys. If you're interested in picking up some XS sights, they've been gracious enough to sponsor this podcast and to give you guys a kickback of 20% off of your next purchase. So if you guys are interested in that, check them out. Use the code.
Link code below.
Yeah,
below
all that
link.
jazz. We'll leave all that shenanigans in the comments. So the next thing we need to say really quick is a huge thank you to you guys as we say each and every single time, we do see our analytics rising after every episode. More people are listening, and we really do appreciate it. If you are listening to us on Spotify, you're more than welcome
The Lord's
to
platform.
you can comment. You can also check us out on the Instagrams and send us a DM if you have any questions or if you have some guest recommendations.
YouTube. We're on YouTube as well.
We are on YouTube. That's correct as
And
well.
Rumble.
Not Rumble.
Oh, no Rumble.
I don't know. We might have to look into that though.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sure how they do the podcasting platforms for Rumble, but yeah, that would be a good idea.
I don't tell you my bad ideas on air.
All righty. But we, again, thank guys for listening in on our podcast. And we will...
cat.
The cat. Oh, my. Sorry, guys. Our cat is... We have a new addition to the family. It is a black cat. His name is Phantom. And about this time, every single night, he turns into the Phantom Menace. So we're going to have some running around, some
cat cords being attacked.
Yeah, some cords being attached and stuff like that. So talk one more time in your mic. Just want to make sure you're good. Yep, we're good.
I think we still see the green light.
Okay, good. All right. So sorry about that, guys. Freaking kick this cat here in a second. But with that being said, we're going to introduce our guest and bring him on board. This is M26 Lemon Grenade. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. And I really do appreciate your flexibility and trying to get us scheduled and get this thing going, because I think we have some really great things to talk about this time.
So
Yeah.
who are... Oh,
Thanks
sorry.
for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So who are you? What do you do?
My online persona is M26 Lemon Grenade. I don't really do too much. I have a small YouTube channel that deals with Kalashnikov stuff and accessories, and even smaller Instagram page that just has the occasional funny meme. That's about the gist of what I do. I've been living, breathing Kalashnikov since 2006. Been building them since 2015. Something like close to 90 kit built at this point. I just use my YouTube to try to spread my knowledge and experience a little bit.
Now, those kit builds that you've done, are those, ones that you've pulled together for a business, or how does that break down?
It's just fun. I buy a kit, build it out, sell it, and buy another kit, build it out, sell it. Trust me, I'm not making any money.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Don't get high on your own supply. That's what they always tell you.
I'm breaking even, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If there's anybody from the IRS listening, I'm not running a for-profit business at all.
Yeah.
It's a hobby that I'm not making any money at.
That's good. What has been in your opinion? What would you say has been your favorite kit build that you've done?
Yes.
Oh.
I just like crushing rivets and crushing barrels. I don't. For me, lately it's been what I call warlord builds.
Mm-hmm.
Just slapping garbage together that probably doesn't belong together. Once you've done about 20 AKM builds, it gets really boring because there's no secret to making an acceptable AKM. You know what I mean? It's probably, I'll use the words of Jim Fuller. It's a gun that, even built incorrectly, can run very well for a while. So yeah, you kind of get to a point to where just doing a straight AKM is boring. Then you move into other calibers, other variants, and then you start saying, all right, let's go ahead and take barrel, Polish barrel components and slap it into an AKM, and let's see if we can make a Tantal 7.62 by 39. Or let's see if we can take a PPS 43 magwell and cram it into a Romanian 9mm and make a 9mm AK that runs on PPS 43 mags. You start doing stuff like that, and then it's just like, all right, that's fun. I hate my life, but it's still fun.
What for anyone who is interested in trying to pull one together, what would you say is the most challenging aspect? You've done so many of them. Is there anything that still kind of frustrates you from time to time?
Your ego. Man, it's not like, I hear this all the time. Like, I built 200 ARs. I can build an AK. Like, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say that from a point of like being a snob or anything. It's just there's a lot that goes into it, a lot of different skills that you need to pull together. And unless you got like, especially if you're a new builder, unless you got somebody specifically there with you, showing you what to do and how to do it, it's a very painful learning process. And it doesn't matter how experienced you are. You could talk to guys who've been building guns for like 20, 30 years. Every build has something that goes wrong, every single one. So it's just a matter of, is it a big something that went wrong or a little something that went wrong? Yeah. Maybe it's just a rivet. If that's all it is, hey, that's a good build. Maybe it's a barrel. Maybe you bent a barrel. Yeah, that's a bad one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something will always go wrong. So the biggest thing is just leave your ego at the door. That you, no matter how many kits you've got, no matter how long you've been doing this, the kit is going to throw you a curveball, and you just need to deal with it.
Yep.
There's days where I literally just want to take all my tools and put them on Craigslist and be like, somebody just take this shit away. I don't want to deal with it anymore.
Well, we kind of jumped the gun a little bit. So let's get a little bit of the villain origin story. So how did you get from being a weed lad to making Franken AKs in the basement and worry about bent barrels? Where did it all begun? Like what?
Well, do you want the long version or the short version?
We got over 90 minutes, man. So
okay. So I want to say it was like, again, I've been buying Kalashnikov since 2006. I bought my first one in 2004 in Fallujah for like $20. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I bought my first commercial one.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to jump in here. Can we take just like a half step back? Did you just say that you bought your first one in Fallujah for $20?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that unusual? Like, is that like?
I mean, I wasn't in Fallujah. I was in Iraq just about probably, I don't know, maybe 12 months before that. And there was like no way that I didn't know of any way that there was the option to do something like that.
Well, I mean, I'm sure if you follow the rules, no, but if you just
well, kind of like what we learned from Sam, you have to let them tell you no. Make them tell you no. So,
well, I mean, it's like, hey, you can't do that. Really? Where's it written? Where's it written? I can't do this.
Well, it just so happens that a day later there's a memorandum.
Is it frowned upon, or is there an actual rule that says I can't do this? If it's frowned upon, I don't care. But if there's an actual rule, okay.
Okay. Well, I don't want to trip us up too much, but I would like to revisit this little story.
Yeah. So first bought one in Fallujah, then went home. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I got out of the Marines in like 2006, 2005, really, and then 2006 I bought my first Kalashnikov. It was a Wasser underfolder that was just total dog shit. I mean, this thing was horrible, but it worked. It was fine, and that's when I got started in it. And then fast forward to 2015, I decided I wanted my first 5.45 gun, and at the time, Arsenals had just stopped importing the 104s. So there really wasn't anything out there. Now keep in mind, this was 2015, so you could still get Wassers $300 all day. So, a used 104 was going for like $1,300 on like Gunbroker. So that was like a hard pill to swallow. Like now you'd like, oh man, that's a hell of a deal. But 10 years ago, that was like, you got to be kidding me. $1,200 for, an AK. That's ridiculous. But so I really didn't want to pay that. And the only thing besides like Arsenal 104s used were like crappy garage builds. And I bought a couple of those, and they were all horrendous in one way, shape, or form. Somebody just bought a Circle 10 kit and just tried to pound it together in their garage. And like the one that really sticks out in my mind is I bought it as a 5.45 74, and I got it, and it was actually chambered in 5.56. I was like, what is this? Like, so it was just like a string of those like failures. So I still wanted a 5.45 despite all the failures. And I had a buddy. I live in a very small rural like community. So there's only 2 AK guys for like 200 miles. And I was talking to him, and he's like, hey, we should just get like 74 kits and build them out. I was like, well, that sounds like a good idea. So we bought the kits for like $350 and then all the parts and accessories, all that crap. So it was probably close to like $800. But then we had to find somebody to build it. And like we talked to Meridian, they wanted like $900 to build it out. So, I mean, you're talking like what, $1,800 at that point. You may as well just have the Arsenal 104.
Mm-hmm.
Lee Armory, I don't know if anybody still remembers them.
Yep.
Yeah, they quoted us like 700. It's like, that's still pretty spicy. And then Jim Fuller was still at Rifle Dynamics, and he had like a build class, and we were talking to him about doing the build class, but with our Circle 10 kits, and he quoted us like, I don't know, like I think it was like $2,400 for the class, and because the class was just basically riveting, so he'd have to do all the prep work. So it's like Jim Fuller doing the prep work, and the class was like $2,500 in Las Vegas. And that was a hard sell for the wives. Like, hey, me and my buddy got to go to Las Vegas for a weekend to build AKs. You okay with that?
Yeah.
from a shady old man in
Yeah,
the garage.
Yeah. So like that wasn't happening. So we found a gunsmith locally who had a good reputation, and he was a friend of my friend, and he said he'd build our Kalashnikovs for like $200. And I was like, oh, cool. So he let us, he's like, you can come in the shop and watch if you want. Like, all right. So again, this was 2015. I didn't know anything about building AKs, none of that stuff. So basically what happened is I did what any modern man would do. I went on YouTube and searched like every video I could find. And I got a pretty good idea of the process. You know, you use a press to press the barrel components in, you use a jig to rivet and all that stuff. So, you know, use a no-go gauge the headspace, things like that. And we showed up in this guy's shop, and he had no press, he had no jig, you know, he had no no-go gauges. And I was like, what are we doing here? And he, like, how are we going to press the barrel? And he shows me a 5-pound hammer. I was like, what? He's like, you're going to beat my barrel into the trunnion with a 5-pound hammer? He's like, yeah, it's fine. It's an AK. And then he got done beating the barrel in, and then he drilled it, and it was crooked as shit. And then he was like, all right, now how are we going to rivet this thing? And then he just gets an air hammer. So he's going to use like the trunnion basically as a bucking bar and like air hammer the rivets flat. And then he headspace with a live round, not a no-go gauge. So it was completely out of headspace. So at the end of the day, I had a $1,100 piece of shit at this point. I mean, it wasn't riveted correctly. Nothing was straight. I mean, it was bad. And that's like, well, I'm not a guy that quits. So I was like, well, I'm not just going to throw $1,100 in the garbage. So I started talking to people to fix it. And again, Meridian wanted like $700 to fix it. And, you know, Lee Armory wanted $600 to fix it. It's like, well, if I want to fix this turd, I'm going to have to do it myself. So that's when I started buying the tools and trying to teach myself how to build these things. So that's where I started, just trying to fix this mess. And I've always loved Kalashnikovs, and, you know, it's always been my favorite. So I started off real simple. Just bought a $80 12-ton press from like Harbor Freight, like an $80 drill press from Harbor Freight, and the riveting jigs that were like for the bolt cutters, the rivet squeezers. Just started off real simple with that. Made some of my own tools, some of my own riveting tools, which made terrible rivets, but they were good enough for the time. And then I just kept going. And the more kits I did, the better I got. Sold those kits off, was able to fund some tools, able to buy better tools, better jigs, things like that. Now I've got everything I need to build my own Kalashnikovs, except for a lathe, because I'm not buying a lathe.
No,
yet.
That's
not buying it yet.
That's not happening.
So I'm gonna to play the devil's advocate. So I don't know anything about AK building outside of, I guess, a 5-pound hammer is not the way to do it. What's the lathe for?
So if it, like, for example, if I want to take an AKM barrel and set it up for like the 90-degree gas block, you need to you need to turn back the journal so that it has the right clearance and the right tolerance.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know, just things like that. Or if you want to do like a front end conversion with a 14.5 barrel, you know, cut the barrel, turn it so that you can mount a suppressor, things like that.
Okay. So like for the most part, outside of doing some of the finer precision work, most of the stuff is I say relatively easy. I mean, it's harder than an AR to set up, but it's something that you can go to Harbor Freight and at least get somewhat set up for, or is it this something that you
Well,
should go to SDI for a couple of years and figure it out?
no, I wouldn't recommend SDI. No, you start you need like a 12-ton press, not a 20-ton, a 12-ton.
Okay.
If you can't press it on with 12 tons, a 20-ton will destroy it. Okay, so if the 12-ton isn't working, the 20-ton is going to break it. You know what I mean? So if you can't get it done with the 12, just stop, reevaluate what you're doing. So a 12-ton press, a table drill press that can go down to 300 RPMs. The higher the RPMs, you're going to burn out your bit before you can get through something like a nitrided barrel. So I recommend like a base model that can get down to 300 RPMs, which is pretty. I don't know why, but I was at Harbor Freight the other day. I couldn't find anything that went down to 300 RPMs, except for like a stand-up one that cost like $400. So that was a little bit strange.
Mm-hmm.
So drill press, 12-ton press, and then you need specialized tools. So like I think it calls himself Robert Forbes. Forbes Tools. He sells press fixtures, things like that. Innovative tools for like taking the barrels out, like a barrel ram. And none of those are cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, like just a press fixture for your barrel, which is basically a 1-inch bar stock with half moon shaped cuts in the side of it, just so that you can line it up with the barrel. That's like $55 easily. The barrel press ram, which you need to remove a barrel, that's going to be like $65 to $70. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing cheap about AK tools. You can make your own. I mean, like that's what I started off. I started off just trying to make my own tools, and they were garbage, and I broke a lot of parts. And you learn real quick that you're better off just buying good tools and just trying to get by with whatever crap you cobbled together.
So the buy once, cry once mantra is really, really relevant to the AK building industry. Yeah, it's kind of weird because it's the amount of I put air quotes AR builders around these days, but you don't really see a whole lot of US based guys in their base or garage still making AKs. Is there any like specific reason for that? Is like the AK culture kind of going away from the builders, or it's just
my experience, there's more people than ever that want to get into building.
Mm-hmm.
But the roadblock is cost. Like keep in mind, 10 years ago when I started, you could buy a Romanian kit for $200.
Yeah.
And I always tell people the same thing. If you want to get into building, your first 3 guns are going to be terrible. Mm-hmm. Unless you got somebody there teaching you what to do, what not to do, your first 3 guns are going to be absolute dog shit. So back when I started, the first 3 guns, that was $600. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now that kits are like $500 a pop. A Romanian kit's like $450, $500. Your first 3 guns are going to be $1,500. So you just spent AK tools altogether, all in, is probably close to $900. So you just spent $900 in tools, and you're going to spend about $1,500 just to make an acceptable gun. Not even a good gun, an acceptable one. So like once you start explaining that to people, even though they're interested, they just kind of like wane off.
Mm-hmm.
But the amount of people that can build now compared to 10 years ago was amazing. I mean, 10 years ago you had like 4 shops, maybe 5. You had, Meridian, you had Lee, you had Rifle Dynamics, you had like CW Gunworks. He was just getting started. I think M13 had just started too. So you had like 5 shops that you could go to. Now there's probably like 20 shops that I wouldn't hesitate to send people to. So there's more interest. There's more people that can do it. It's just the cost barrier. There's just not a lot of people willing to make that leap to build Kalashnikovs now, that it's just so expensive.
Is there any reason why the kits have jumped in price outside of just the normal? It's gun culture. We're going to start charging you more for things.
Well, I mean, kits were pretty affordable all the way up until the pandemic, the lockdowns, and then it just went nuts. Like I remember buying Maudie kits, like straight up Maudie kits with the Arabic writing on it from Apex, like 2019 for $400 a pop. And then the pandemic hit, everybody was going crazy just buying anything they get their hands on, and all of a sudden that same Audi kit was going for like $900 on Gunbroker. It was nuts. So, for whatever reason, the popularity skyrocketed in 2020, and and again, the Soviet Union's been out of business for a while, so it's not like they're putting out more parts kits. So you just have Econ 101, supply and demand. You got a set supply, and the demand keeps going up. So your supply dwindles and dwindles and dwindles until it's almost non-existent. And we really haven't seen anything to replenish that demand. I mean, you got some domestic producers like PSA, Riley, and they're pretty piss poor. And then you got like WBP imports, which in my opinion, and a lot of builders will share this opinion, like they're acceptable, but they're commercial grade. They're not military grade at all. So people are using them and building them just because they don't have any other options, but they're not really that great.
And is it like these, like, is Coogere and Arsenal just not making and selling kits, or is it just
well, like Romania is still pumping in. They're pumping in core parts. Like if you go to Rifle Dynamics website right now, you have the option. You used to have the option of just buying like a Romanian core part set, which I think came from that fact. I can never say it right, so that's why I'm avoiding saying it.
Coogere.
I always
as someone who's been to the factory, it's Coogere.
Yeah. I always say it like I only have like 40% of my hearing.
Okay.
I say things wrong, like unfamiliar words, like Sagia and like Sugir and all that. So I say it wrong, and people make fun of me. So I just avoid saying it. It just makes it easier. But anyway, it's they're still bringing parts in. The problem really is, like, you look at the Wassers, for example, prime example of what I'm about to talk about here. So, like, PSA sets the price of everything these days because they can just pump out so much. I was hearing Cameron talk about their AK capacity back in 2020, and that was like 400 AKs a day. So when you do the math, 5-day work week, you're talking 2,000 AKs a week and 8,000 AKs a month. They're able to put out 8,000 AKs a month. They're probably doing a unit cost somewhere close to $450, $500. I'm just speculating here.
So Mark's over here doing like the math on his calculator.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just saying, they have the ability to crank out a lot, and that's 5 years ago. That's 2020 numbers he was talking about. So they have the ability to crank out just sheer numbers, and it's very, very cheap. So everybody is in a rush to, like, they're hard pressed to make something that's close to that price point. So, like, the problem with the Wassers is, things are getting more expensive. Imports are more expensive, parts, metal, everything's more expensive. So now you got the Wassers coming in that still have decent core parts, but the rest of the gun is trash. Like, I bought a Wasser last year, and the core parts, while they're still excellent, the barrel is just a shadow what it used to be. The barrel components are horrible. The rivets are done correctly, but they don't look great. The finish is terrible. So, so while there is still imports coming in, like the Romanians, they're not great compared to what they were just 5-6 years ago. And then Arsenal hasn't imported stamped guns in forever. All they're importing is the SAM 5s and SAM 7s. And I've had my hands on one SAM 5, and it was just dog shit. I mean, they want like $1,900 for that thing, and it was like over gas, beating itself up. I mean, I got the pictures, and it's horrible. The point I'm making is, there's still imports coming in, but they're either insanely overpriced, and or the quality just isn't there.
What do you feel is driving this the market to be so high? Is it starting with the components, the core components being so difficult to get, and or quality? I mean, you've talked about in your videos the expectation of quality and what that actually means. Do you feel that that those core parts is what's really kind of driving it, or is it going back to what you said before, is PSA is basically just setting the price because of their volume?
Yeah, I mean, PSA is setting a price. So everybody's got to compete with their price point. Like, let's take a look. I mean, just consider KUSA. Excellent guns, excellent core parts. Despite like the few things you see here and there on like Reddit, or like gun quality enforcement. They did have some problems. There's no denying that. But when you like tear into it, the core parts on the KUSA guns were amazing. I mean, they actually had halfway decent barrels there for a while until they started running into money problems.
Mm-hmm.
But the core issue is there's not a whole lot of people that know the difference between a crappy AK and a good AK. So if I'm in a store and I'm looking at a $750 like PSA Gen 3, and right next to it is a KUSA, 103 for like what are they selling for? Like $1,400-$1,500?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go for the Gen 3 all day if I don't know the difference between the two, like that's just the way it is. So anybody that wants to come into the market, they gotta compete with that PSA price point. And it's very hard to compete with that price point just based on the absolute volume that they could put out.
Yeah.
Now I do have a question about when it comes to especially AKs, and I know this is as you being a maker and as a I guess an artiste of sort with AKs, you have a stronger opinion on this, but when it comes to buying a quality AK, you talk about the PSAs being of a shittier tier, as the French would say.
Yeah, I don't buy those things.
Would the average consumer of a rifle know the difference? I take a likeness to the guy who's going to go deer hunting once a year. He buys a Savage Axis in 30-06. Granted, it's not a GA Precision custom built rifle, and comparatively to the GA Precision rifle, the Savage Axis is dog shit, but it does what the consumer wants it to do.
We're getting into the territory of PSA makes guns for people that don't shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, if that's the yardstick we're going to use to measure a gun, you can give them like a prop gun and they'll be happy with it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Why even bother with a gun if you're not going to shoot it? Here's a prop gun for $150 off of here's an airsoft gun.
Right.
It looks cool. It looks cool. But the thing is, I'm going to bring the story up from my childhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this would have been late 90s, early 2000s. It was a lady that got attacked in her home, and she had a 380 Bursa for self-defense, right?
Yeah.
Those little, like, I think they're Brazilian, South American.
It was my first carry gun.
Yeah.
And
so
it's no longer with me.
Yeah, exactly. She had one of those. She's not a gun person. She probably
Mm-hmm.
took it out and put like 50 rounds to it to make sure it works. Put it in her nightstand. Some dude attacked her in her home, and guess what? It broke. So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So she's not a shooter. She bought something to defend herself just because she probably didn't have a lot of money, and when she needed to use it, it broke. So, buying something that's cheap and might not work is probably not a great strategy, in my opinion. I would rather have something, anything that works. So if you're worried about, if you're not worried about shooting it, if it's just a range toy, I get it. If you've got a gun that's reliable and that's your go-to, and you're just buying like something like the PSA or the Riley Defense, I don't want to like make it like I'm just beating up on PSA. No. Like any budget brand, like a Riley, a PSA, and Anderson Arms. If you got a good gun that's your old reliable that you can go to, it's going to work, fantastic. And you're just buying the cheap brand for a range toy to have fun with, totally get it. Go for it. I support you. But if you're only going to buy like one gun, put like 50 rounds in it and put it in the closet and just forget about it, you really should think about getting something a little bit better that is going to work. So you're not like that lady who tried to use her burst to defend herself and it broke whatever the hell it broke,
Right.
Yes. The when I usually talk to, don't you even think about a cat? Go away. Sorry. Usually I'm mainly I'm indifferent. A rifle's a rifle, but I know a lot of guys are like, hey, I shoot ARs, but I'm looking at getting an AK. What should I get? For those who are AK curious, I guess, maybe like, starting them off with a, if there's something that they're going to just play around with on the range day, just to see, say I have a Slav weapon, some of those, I'll say the budget options, but the American mades aren't terrible. But if it's hey, I'm going over to Fallujah and I have to defend myself, my family, maybe the PSA is not the way to go, is essentially what I'm getting.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is if you just want something to take pictures on Instagram, get the PSA. That's fine, whatever. But if you want something that's going to last, PSAs don't last. The Rileys don't last. The Century guns, they don't last. And it's all because of they're cheaply made. I mean, all three in PSA in particular is, what's called a volume-based business. So they make their money off pure volume. They don't make a whole lot of money per gun, per item, whatever the item is, radios, hamburgers, whatever, but they don't make a lot of money per item, but they sell so many of them that they make a lot of money. So, my contention is that when you have a company that's a volume-based business, if they can keep their price point the same and find some way to make that item cheaper and still sell them, they're going to do that. So you might have a gun that's got a price point of $700 and they might be making, $600 per gun. If they can find a way to make that price point, $525, $575 or whatever, and all they got to do is just shortchange you somehow, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
and that kind of cutthroat mentality just really bothers me. So.
And it's hard because with the AR, if you bought a PSA, let's say for example you bought a PSA AR-15 for $500, and a year or two you can replace the barrel with very minimal multiples. You can replace the trigger group.
You buy a $50 wrench and you can replace just about anything on that gun.
But so the AK though is a little bit different. Is that kind of like the buyer's beware? This is, you buy it and this is what you get, or is there is there easily upgradable things you can do to your AKs? If you bought a PSA and you want to replace, replace the trigger group, replace furniture, replace something.
Well, I mean, let's make it clear. If you got crappy core parts, you got a crappy gun.
Okay. And what are the core parts?
Okay, so when I'm talking core parts, I'm talking trunnion, bolt, carrier. Though that's your heart of the gun is the trunnion, the bolt, and the carrier. So there's nothing you can do to fix a trunnion, a bolt, or a carrier. If it's bad, it's bad. It needs to be replaced, and that's a very expensive and it takes a lot of skill to do that. So if you got something like a PSA, and that's my main gripe with those type of guns, PSA and Rileys and Century guns, the BFT 47s, the Vescas. I don't want to just seem like I'm just beating up on PSA. When it comes to those cheap budget guns, their core parts are garbage. So if you got a gun with garbage core parts, there's nothing you can do to fix it. You can put any kind of trigger you want. You can put any kind of barrel you want. You can put any type of rail system you want. If the core parts are garbage, that's a garbage gun. So that's the prime example of that is the PSA Gen 5. It's a Gen 5 with a ALG trigger and a FN barrel. The FN barrels are the best AK barrels in America right now. That's my opinion. Those things are amazing. But you're putting it in a gun with very bad core parts. It's got a bad trunnion. When I say bad, I mean, they have a tendency to peen at the locking lug, so your headspace grows. You got bolts that are terrible. They have a tendency to have what's called prolapse, where your firing pin is pushing the bolt face out, making the firing pin channel hole bigger and bigger and bigger, to where you either break a firing pin or you get so much crap in there that it breaks the firing pin, and then you get chewed up locking lugs and rotation lugs to where you lose headspace, which I've seen personally. I've had PSA guns lose headspace in 600 rounds. So if you've got a gun like that with bad core parts, it doesn't matter what barrel you put in, it doesn't matter what trigger you put in, it's a bad gun. So you need to get a gun with good core parts, and that's why I always tell people, start your first gun, get a Wasser 10. There's a bunch of little things wrong with a Wasser 10, but it's got good core parts.
Speaking of the Wassers, have you had any experience with the Wasser 3s, the 5.56 versions?
I talked to some people about them. I think they were going for $1,200. So yeah. I think Michiko has multiple videos about how his are dog shit, and that's been kind of the consensus I got to other people. I'm not a big fan of 5.56 AKs, so I don't really do much with them. I get the appeal, definitely, especially with 5.45 being 80 cents to $1 a round. I get the appeal of a 5.56 AK. I just don't like them, just because I think an AR does firing a 5.56 so much better than anything Kalashnikov. But I get the appeal. But the Wasser 3s, I haven't heard anything good about them. If you go on Centerfire's, was it that website, Centerfire Solutions, I think they're a retailer out of Kentucky.
Okay.
They have they have Wasser 3s on there for like $650 to $750 that are all jacked up. Like they don't feed, like broken bolts, stuff like that. So, that's kind of an indication to me that there's something wrong with those things and you should stay away from them.
So one other question regarding a lot of the aspects of what about is you haven't really mentioned Zastava at all. Is there a reason for that maybe, or is it just something is like, well, it's a Yugo AK, so I just don't even mess with them?
Well, so let's start off with 7.62 by 39. So
Sure.
7.62 by 39, the round itself really sucks past 300 yards. Now, when I say it sucks past 300 yards, you look at a ballistic drop chart, it stays pretty steady. Then at 300 yards, that's when it starts to fall off the table, just because it's like 128, 127 grain projectile with not a whole lot of powder propelling behind it. I haven't looked at the charts in a while, so don't ask me to like memorize this stuff. But
sure,
when you're talking 7.62 by 39, once it goes past 300 yards, it kind of blows. Your bullet drop gets ridiculous. I did a whole video on it at one point. I think it's still up. Yeah, I think it's still up, where it's like if you're at 400 yards, you're aiming basically a dude and a half over the guy's head. If you're 500 yards out, you're aiming like a giraffe over the guy's head. And once you get to 600 yards, you're aiming like a 3-story building. So your hold is a 3-story building over the guy's head. And then the effects of wind on 7.62 by 39 past 300 yards is ridiculous. So the point I'm making is it doesn't matter how fancy your gun is, doesn't matter how expensive it is. If it's 7.62 by 39, you're going to get the same performance from a $400 Wasser as you are from a $3,000 Meridian Defense build, which I had. I had a $3,000 Meridian Defense build that they built for me out of a East German kit.
Nice.
And it was a fantastic gun, but as soon as you started trying to push that thing past 300 yards, guess what? 7.62 by 39 pecker smacks you in the face with how mediocre it is at distance. So the point I'm making is, if it's 7.62 by 39, if you've got a Wasser or you got a M70, a Yugo M70, you're going to get the same performance out of that round. So the difference is, a Wasser, I can pick those up for like $700. They weigh about 7 pounds unloaded. If I pick up an M70, they're going for like $1,000. I'm paying $300 more for that. It weighs almost 1.5 pounds heavier. It's been a while because the barrel is 25% thicker. It has RPK specs on the trunnion, and the receiver is like 1.5 millimeter sheet steel instead of the 1 millimeter sheet steel. So I'm paying more for a gun that's heavier to do the exact same job as the AKM. And, bonus, you don't have the aftermarket support that you do for, a Yugo M70 as you do for just a basic AKM. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
So as much as people love the M70s and they tell me that they're the greatest guns ever, just the fact that you're paying more for a heavier gun to do the exact same job, I don't like. And then when you're talking the Zastafas, the new ones coming in, they're commercial grade. If you just search Zastafa carrier fail, you'll see a bunch of carriers and bolts that have been beat to hell by an ALG trigger. So
yeah, that is true. Yeah, I do know that there's been a lot of stuff online. I mean, even just like on Instagram, that people are kind of poking fun of Zastava about if you put an ALG trigger in, you just voided your warranty.
Yeah, exactly. that's happened. Like, there was a guy like, hey man, he showed his carrier and it looked like a mushroom, and he's like, they're telling me I'm to piss up a rope because I put an ALG in here. It's like, who doesn't put an ALG in their guns?
Yeah.
But, to be fair, I want to be completely fair. I haven't seen like firsthand that issue with the Zastafa for probably like 3 years.
Yeah.
So has it been fixed? I don't know, but it's something that was around for a while, and the last time I saw it was 3 years ago. Like in person. I don't mean just like off a Reddit page.
Sure.
Like, somebody brought me a gun that was beat to shit, and I was able to source like a surplus M70 bolt and carrier and get them back up and running.
Yeah, and there's also been a lot of complaints. I'm on. I hate to admit it, but I get onto AK files on the Facebooks, and the moment that you say M70 or Zastava, you'll just get dogpiled. They're like, oh, they're pieces of shit. Blah 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 blah. And then when you ask them, you'll ask the question, well, why? And they'll say, well, their metallurgy is suspect.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything about the metallurgy? I keep on hearing that replayed over and over and over again, but no one specifically says.
You hear stuff like that, and my experience with that is somebody heard from a guy who saw it on Reddit. So, I don't know anything about metallurgy. I don't have any way to test like rock weld hardness. So if it's not something I've seen or not something that I've dealt with personally, I generally don't talk about it. So it's like there might be a problem with their metallurgy, but I don't have any way to like confirm or deny that. So I don't really touch it. But I have seen M70s beat the hell by ALG. So I'm comfortable talking about that because I've seen it and I've fixed it.
Yeah.
Now that that's like the 762 by 39 part, and the other half is the M90s. So I'm not a big fan of 5.56 AK simply because I think an AR does firing 5.56 so much better than anything Kalashnikov. It just blows my mind why anybody want to run a Kalashnikov in 5.56. But when you're talking the M90s, I had an M90. This thing cost me, I bought them early, so it cost me about $1,500. It was heavy. It was a lot. I had at the same time for $1,500, I had a Daniel Defense SPR. So it was heavier than the SPR. It was the same money. It was like a 4 to 5 MOA gun. Mounting optics was a bitch. When I did mount an optic, it just wasn't great. And right next to it was my Daniel Defense SPR that was the exact same money, hitting like 1 MOA all day long with just basic M193 ammo. So it just never made sense to me to go for something like the M90. I know Clay has one. He loves it and he runs it in competition. That's fantastic. Yeah. I'm happy for him. But that's just not been my experience. And the amount of money you got to put into it to get it to like Clay's level that he's got his M90. His M90 is sweet, but he probably spent a lot of money to trick that bad boy out. I just don't see you could probably buy an LMT for the amount of money he's got into his M90. So,
yeah, I'm not exactly sure everything that he's done with his, but I've actually shot his M90 and it is flat. It doesn't move when you pull the trigger. It's pretty cool. I've got an M90 that I have shot in competition at Clash Bash and Kalashnikon. Kalashnikon was able to get out to 575, which was really nice, which is great. I mean, obviously it's 5.56, so naturally you should expect it to do that. I'll have to look at the internals because I did upgrade the trigger to what is it? The CMC AK trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like 2.5 pound pull on it. And so it's been pretty interesting. It's been a lot of fun to shoot that. And the only thing that I've really done to upgrade it besides the trigger is I've got one of the 5-position adjustable gas plungers. I don't know if that's sleeves, I guess. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just swap that out. It's just a real quick, easy part to swap out. And between those two things, I mean, it's been really, really good. And it's been reliable. The only time that I've ever had any issues with it, I've had 2 instances. One is I'm pretty sure that I put a 5.45 round into it.
That doesn't work.
Yeah, but I saw it on the ground and I was like, oh, I picked it up and I was like, oh, that's cool. And I just tossed it into my bag. Well, not bag. I had a one of those foldable wagons that I was carrying around at Clash Bash. And I must have, I don't know how I did it. I must have loaded it into the magazine and fed it and shot it. And it then ballooned into the chamber, causing it to seize right in the middle of so stupid mistake. I should have never picked it up, but I did. And so I had to mortar it and I was able to finally clear it and complete the stage, which was nice. But, and then the only other time that I've had any issues with it is using AAC ammo. Yeah.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah. So it's accurate. I've ran it in ARs and I usually can get under an inch at 100 yards with my ARs, but outside of that, the M90's been great. I've enjoyed it, and you're right. The Wasser is going to do exactly the same thing as an M70, and it's going to probably do it a little bit better as far as upgrading for AKM components and stuff like that. I think a lot of people start looking at an AK that looks like Edward Scissorhands put it together compared to the M70 that is a little bit more finesse.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
Sure.
I'm a guy that can tinker. So you give me a a Wasser 10, I can make that thing pretty nice. Not everybody wants to do that, and I completely respect that. Not everybody wants to buy a press and buy the parts, do it themselves. They just want to take it out of the box and shoot. And if that's your bag and you don't mind the extra weight, hey, you don't mind paying the extra money, go for it. I'm not going to call you stupid, but it's just not my thing. And that's one thing I always think is interesting. Is like people ask my opinion. What do you think of the M70? I say, well, I don't like it for X, Y, Z. And like, you're an idiot. You need to get stronger if you
what
think
are you doing?
You're just a moron. It's like, whoa, easy, easy. We need to dial back a little bit. Like, and that's something me and Clay talk about all the time. Is we don't always agree on gun stuff, but I'm not going to sit there and call him an idiot and all this shit. Like, I don't care. You like what you like. I like what I like. If you ask my opinion, I'm going to tell you honestly, I don't like it for X, Y, Z. And if you say, well, that's not been my experience, I'm like, all right, cool, brother. Let's keep on trucking.
Yeah.
I was real quick, like I heard Machine Gun Bebe say this like years ago on Mead Fuel Rants podcast, right? I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Oh
yeah.
Awesome. I'm still real good friends with Ashley.
Yeah, me too. But she said, there was a time when we could just dog on people for their gun choices. Like somebody showed up to the range with like a Ruger SR9, and you could just call them you could just really call them out. But as much as people attack the gun community as it is from outside, maybe we shouldn't be attacking each other. Somebody shows up with an SR, and I'm like, okay, all right, not my thing, but fair enough.
Yeah. We don't kink shame here, guys.
Whatever. That's what floats your boat, honey. So.
Well, I feel like it's kind of like that brotherly love. Like we just sit there and if you watch like three brothers, they just bully the shit out of each other. But the second some like random third party joins in, everyone just turns against them. I think that's the
vibe you want. Kind of that like. But that's not what happens. Like I've had people threaten my family because I don't like PSA. It's insane.
I mean,
I put out videos just being honest. Like, look, PSA aren't good because X, Y, Z. You shouldn't buy them if you want a serious gun. And I literally had somebody like put my home address in the comment section of my videos and say, "See you and your family soon." It's like, whoa, back it up, pal.
Yeah, that is uncalled for.
Yeah, that's
back it up.
Yeah, it's. As much as I do love affordable guns for the everyday man, the cult following behind PSA is just
oh my God.
It's a weird phenomenon that I don't think I've ever I've been kind of big into guns since about 2005, 2006. Not as much as some other people have with building everything. I just played a lot of Counter-Strike and thought I knew everything about the world.
It happens.
And I don't think I've ever seen such a cult follower on PSA. And
they're the Scientology of the gun world. It's bananas. Like I'll put out a video just basically just saying, look, here is how bad it is. Like, look at it. Like I'm showing you the gun that I bought with my own money, how bad it is. And then I always get what I call the talking points, which is number one is they do more for the Second Amendment than you ever have. They make gun ownership affordable. They listen to their customers' feedback and make their products better. I always get the talking points, and it's like clockwork. Like, holy, like, I don't know what kind of, like, I know what they're doing. I mean, the one thing that they do extremely well is like marketing, YouTube marketing. They're amazing at that. So they've kind of got everybody Pavlov dog, they ring the bell and they say the talking points, and it's amazing. But at the same time, like people just take it too far.
No,
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Don't threaten my family just because I don't like the PSA 101. You know,
it's kind of akin to, there's a guy that buys a Chevy S10 because he needs a pickup truck, and
yeah.
it's the people that buy a Chevy S10 because that's their personality. And unfortunately, PSAs became a personality for a lot of people. And I mean, I don't say victim of it. I've bought PSA stuff before. I've bought
Oh, yeah.
rifles. I bought guns, and they have a specific use case for things. For example, the best one I've seen is like the PSA daggers. They are great guns to bring to some sort of like, to, if you are instructor, buy like 5 or 6 of them. You're a grand in, put different optics on it for people to try out different optics, so you're not spending time, effort, and money, so people can shoot 50, like 20, 30 rounds off of different optics and see which ones they like, compared to setting up a Glock, 5 or 6 Glock 17s with all these sights. So again, the PSA has a use case. They have they are I would say a manufacturer for the intro and or everyman, or for like the range toys. But again, as you were mentioning, the following is just
It's
insane. Like, there's people that will I knew there were some pretty bad people, like pretty malicious actors when it came to PSA, like fanboyism. But to actually put your address up on, did anything come out of that at all? Like, did you?
Oh, no. Like, what came out of it is I shut everything down for like a year. I was like, you know what? This isn't worth it. Like, I'm just doing this. I'm just doing this for fun. I'm doing this just to try to get people to understand the Kalashnikov platform a little bit better, so they stop buying garbage. Because, and that's been my point for a while is, people accept this because there's nothing else out there. And there's not going to be anything else out there until we stop accepting this garbage. Like us as a Kalashnikov community, as I like to call the Clash crew, if we just continually accept garbage, there's no incentive for anybody to get better. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse, because like I said before, a company like PSA, and I'm not just picking on them, like any of those companies, they're making their money off of a $700 AK that they're putting together for like $600. If they can find a way to make that same gun for $525, $575, whatever, and people still buy it for $700, they're going to do it. So if we keep accepting these subpar guns, they're going to keep getting worse. So that's always been my point, is just let's stop accepting this, and let's, like, hey, I'm not going to buy this until you rivet them correctly and you actually give me core parts that don't grow headspace after like 2,000 rounds.
And for like our 29 listeners now, 29 listeners, we're using I think using like synopsis, like not synopsis, like synonymous. If we say like McDonald's, we keep on saying McDonald's over, we mean every like garbage fast food chain restaurant. We're not just talking about McDonald's.
You're not talking about Wendy's, are you?
Wendy's, their fries, man. 2000 and was it 10 was a bad year for Wendy's.
That's true.
So
that was the thing I always thought when I had all my videos up. At one point, I had like 125 videos, because I checked this out just to see if I was crazy. And I put out like a video and like, you're just a PSA hater. All you have to talk about is how crappy PSA is. Like, I have 125 videos, and 7 of them even talk about PSA. So it's a stretch to say that all I talk about is PSA. No. Like that's a stretch. Like, I talk about Pioneer Arms, I'm talking about the WBPs, I'm talking about anything I can get my hands on and get personal experience with that people are going to buy. Because I want to put videos out about guns that people want to buy that are on the market. I don't want to like put a video out about some obscure gun that nobody get their hands on. Like I had a guy today, like, hey, you should really do a Mahdi video. Like, who the hell can find a Mahdi? You should do a Sagia video. Like, there's no affordable Sagias out there that people are going to buy.
Yeah. And I go to the Tulsa Gun Show as often as I possibly can. It happens every spring and fall. And the last 2 times that I've gone there, I have specifically gone to either find a regular or even a converted Saiga, and they're out there for sure, but they're going to be $1,500, $1,700, even $1,900, depending on obviously who you're buying it from. if it's converted, is it not converted? Is it 7.62 by 39? Is it 5.56?
Or is it the Lord's caliber 12 gauge?
So yeah, it's still even difficult to find those as well.
Well, I mean, for me, I'll buy a $1,400 Sagia because I got the tools and the knowledge to do what I need to do to it. But for somebody off the street buying that's an investment. Like I was talking to, I can't remember who it is. I don't know him that well, but he runs a shop, and we were talking about pricing, and he's like, "What do you think we should charge?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, you should charge like $1,600. It was that he knows what he's charging. This is just kind of like him testing me if I'm just full of shit or not." And he's like, "Well, you should charge at least $1,600 for a build, even before you get the parts involved, because a kit build from the ground up is probably 8 to 10 hours at $100 an hour. Then you got the refinishing costs. That's going to be like $250. And you got, if you're running a whole ass shop, you got the ancillary costs of overhead and all that stuff. So it's like, so if you buy that $1,400 Sega and you want to convert it, that's probably going to be another like $1,500 right there to do it properly.
Yeah,
that's an investment.
Yeah. But there's also that big flex element too. I've got the real deal. So
that's a culture thing that I'm really sad to see. Like, I talk about this with Anthony all the time. Is like the Clash crew used to be like, we didn't care if you had a Clash cough, you were fine, you were cool. If you had like a $300 SAR3, with like the crappiest wood furniture you ever saw and a Shycom chest rig, like, hey, cool, man, show up, we'll have a good time. But that's just not the way it is. It's like now it's like you got to have the Sure Shot rails, and you got to have this, you got to have that, or you're just a douche. You got to be able to run the laser aiming device, otherwise you're just a poor. It's like, man, that's not what the Clash crew was supposed to be.
So we talked with Clay about this. I don't know how long ago we talked about this with Clay.
Last year.
Where the AK community was that it was, you showed up with your Chicom that you got on Amazon and your, $300 garage built rifle, and everyone loved you. Everyone had a great time. And now he was mentioning about with Clash Bash, it's slowly turning into kind of almost on par with a lot of like AR competitions. If you don't go to tactical games with a light profile barrel AR 1x6 Vortex, that you're just kind of frowned upon. And he started talking. That's how we kind of got into the revolvers and lever action rifles. And unfortunately, lever action rifles are kind of slowly turning that way too. Is that something that you feel like is a cultural thing that we're turning to such an elitist, or I say you guys, because you're the AK crew. The AK crew is turning such an elitist like the AR guys are.
Oh,
because now there's the plethora of like the Zetiko, the budget Zetikos, the Midwest, the pick and choose. That's all easily available now. So everyone's like, you have to have an IR aiming device. You have to have a flash.
You gotta have the Sure Shot, or you gotta have the Midwest. You gotta have this. You gotta have that. Oh my God, you just have a Wasser that's with an Ultimac. You scumbag,
Yeah.
It's just horrible. It's like, man, this is not the way it's supposed to be. I get called a snob all the time because I don't like, 5.56 AK. Like, oh, you're just a pure. It's like, no, I just think of, if you're going to run 5.56, just run an AR. Nothing to do with me being a purist. Like, if you want to run a 5.56 AK, hey, go for it. I don't care. It's not my thing.
So a little bit of my AK curious phase of my life. I started with a Wasser 10.
Fine.
And all I did, I bought it from our chaplain, who also had an FFL. And I put an Ultimac rail on it with a primary arms red dot. And I ran that thing for like 5 or 6 years, and it was like the perfect rifle. And then the second time I got to AK curious again, it was kind of in the Midwest was just coming out with their Alpha series. Zetiko was all the rage. The Russian-Ukraine war was in like the beginning stages. So everyone had all these, like, you have to have almost like an AK-12 clone essentially just to be accepted, or you have to have some like weird space gap build, which I built because admin results had one, and I thought it looked interesting.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like a lot of the popularity and a lot of this like snobbiness is being driven from those high profile YouTube personalities,
Mhm.
and I'm not talking trash at all, that's your stick, but like admin or somebody will or Grand Thumb or somebody will post a video with some like tricked out AK, and then their combined 5 million followers, whatever they got, like, oh my God, I gotta have that. So then they start buying this stuff up, and then it has this mentality of like, if you don't have that, you're just a douche. If you want to see what the Kalashnikov community used to be, if you go to, I think it's N Range with when it still had Ian McCollum.
Yeah.
I think it had been about 2015. I want to say the very first Red October with Jim Fuller.
Yep.
Yeah.
That video personifies what the Clash crew used to be. You had Ian out there with some Chinese thing that he slapped together in his garage. You had guys that didn't even have chest rigs. They were just running the matches with magazines in their back pockets with, SAR3s and, Ultimax. You had Jim Fuller out there that was like prime Jim Fuller before he got like completely cynical, like fed up with the internet. He was like excited. He was happy. He was jovial. He was looking at Ian's like piece of crap, gun. He's like, man, this is horrible. I love it. What I mean? Like if you can dig it up, it was again in range. Red October 1. You see what the Clash crew used to be, and then if you look at what it is now, it's just like I don't even recognize it. It's just kind of like, man, this is not what I signed up for. This isn't what I've been building guns for like the last 10 years.
New conspiracy theory. USAID paid YouTubers to trash the AK community so everyone goes back to AR-15s.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. Hey, they spent their money on dumber things, right? Like,
yeah.
They our money. It's not our money on dumber things.
Iraq Sesame Street.
Oh yeah, that's what's funny is you can find that on YouTube. You can actually find.
I will watch that. I saw like a clip of it. I was like, that is actually pretty badass. I want the box set. Give me the box set.
The collector's edition.
If it's on VHS, cool. I'll find one. Like I'm sure there's a VHS in the world I can find.
So there's probably plenty of bootleg copies in Iraq.
Yeah. But like the thing is, I don't want to come off as like that like nostalgic old man. Like, oh, back in my day. Yeah. I'm just pointing out like the way the Clash crew, was just not even, 5-6 years ago. It's kind of morphed into this monster of just like sizzle reels and hypes and
I feel like
garbage.
I feel like the people that have been like around, guns and the intro to YouTube into the gun space, where it's like, if you want to learn about guns, you watched Paul Harrow, you watched Nothing Fancy, and everyone wants to go back to those days. And the unfortunate thing is our timeline has put us to people taking pictures in vans outside of Waffle House at 3 a.m. They're not. Yeah. And that's the thing that gets
culture.
Yeah, the goon culture. That's the guys that and it works for them. They make their living off of taking the photos. They are beautifully composed photos. Don't get me wrong, but that is the aesthetic that the world has moved towards. Is the Call of Duty, the you have to have X, Y, and Z to be successful. I'm going to bring a actual story from yesterday. What happened with me is, so I work for a local law enforcement department. And we had a tryout for a SWAT team yesterday, and the amount of guys that everyone shows up with a concealed carry gun to the range because that's what you're supposed to do. Everyone concealed carries out here, and then it became like a show and tell. And the amount of like Legion X370, everyone had all this like crazy ass shit. We live in like rural Kansas, mind you. Don't like we don't live in a big city. We don't live in a huge jurisdiction where we're in shootings like every weekend. So everyone's rocking, 45 rounds of 9mm, and they're double stacked. And I have a
easy John Wick, like you don't need that.
I have a 6-shot 32 revolver in my pocket. I'm like, this is what I have on me, guys. I've killed about 70 rabbits with this thing and a couple squirrels.
Well,
and I shoot.
You get that Ryan Gosling like gif where he's they're looking over their sunglasses.
I got bullied. I got roasted for it. And then then we take our Glock 17s and everyone fucking sucks at shooting them. Yeah. We won't get into that aspect, but yeah, I feel like that's the gun culture that we live in, unfortunately, today. And I
Well,
mean,
it's all about hype. It's all about, what's hype and what's
Mhm.
sick and what's based and all that crap. And it just needs to be more about what works. For Kalashnikovs, everybody loves the Sure Shot rails. Everybody loves the Midwest Industries. In my experience with those, I've had both
Mhm.
of them. They don't hold zero very well. Like experiences vary. I got a Sure Shot that I paid, I think, like what, $550 for. I've had it on 3 different guns, and it
Mhm.
hasn't held zero on a single gun yet. So I don't even use it. So like, yeah, those things are cool, but do they hold zero with your gun? My experience, with 3 guns I had on, it doesn't. The same thing with the Midwest Industries. You put it on and it looks cool and all, but the top covers don't really hold zero very well. So it's like, you're paying $500 for that? What's the point? Like I was talking to this builder the other day, and he said he built a guy a gun around a Sure Shot, and the guy took a couple pictures for Instagram, and then immediately took it to like a used pawn shop. Like he pawned it, and the guy's like, "Holy crap! You just basically bought this just so you get some, internet clout."
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah. And that's unfortunate. I think you must see the meme. I think it's I can't remember the dude's name. It's a YouTube channel, and it's the here's a company that sponsors me to talk about their product, and here's the use case scenario I have for my life, and if you don't have this, you're gonna die.
yeah.
And I unfortunately, I'm relatively, I say relatively new. It's about 3 years now in this space where it's an industry. We are unfortunately in a consumer industry where
Yep.
people have to come up with something for you to buy. If you bought a Wasser 10 in 2010 and it works like a sewing machine still, they have to find some way to extract more money from you. And it's rails, it's lights, it's optics, it's you have
Oh,
to
I
have
get it.
this trigger pack, you have to have this furniture set. And we don't buy a quality rifle off the bat that works and then you slowly upgrade it with 1 or 2 parts over time. It's you need to have this now or tomorrow you and your family will be burned at the cross because Antifa is going to be fucking knocking on your door.
Mhm.
And now here's people with 5-6 figure credit card debts or just trying to make some internet clout just because they have a Zenecode out AK. Not blowing you at all, but you still
Well,
have your Zenecode rifle?
Yeah, I
Okay.
do. Hell yeah, I'm not getting rid of that
I
thing.
mean, there's nothing wrong with there's nothing
Mhm.
wrong with having expensive shit. I'm not anti-expensive
No.
shit. I'm just anti-expensive shit that don't work. If it
Yes.
works and it's expensive, I'll go for it. I don't care. But when it doesn't work and it's expensive and all it really does is just to get like zucchini emojis on Instagram,
Yes.
that's dumb to me. I just don't see the point. But like,
Excuse me, sir. It was eggplant emojis.
whatever it is. I'm middle aged now. Like this is all it's all Greek to me. Like somebody, like my kid's been saying bonus. Like whenever something cool is happening, a bonus. I was like, what are you talking about?
Well,
So I had to
I've got to.
Google it. Like
Yeah.
I had to Google it. Like our kids saying bonus now, Siri.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I got a 15-year-old daughter, so anytime I get an opportunity, then I'm always, dropping some of the newfangled lingo. She's just like, "Dad, stop."
oh yeah, I won't do it. I'll be 1996 till I die. Like I don't care. But again, I just don't want to come off as like I hate expensive shit. I don't want to come off as like that nostalgic old man. It's like back in my day,
Mhm.
AKs were a nickel and blowjobs were 50 cents. I don't want to come off as that dude. I just want to come off as, this doesn't work. This is bad. Here's why.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I still do my YouTube is just I just want to offer a counterbalance to all the sizzle reels. Like I'll give you a prime example, like the infamous Grand Thumb AK-74 video where he did a whole video. Yeah, if you watch that, the first 2 minutes is him rocking and rolling the 74.
Mm-hmm.
So the first 2 minutes is him patrolling with it, doing mag dumps, doing mag changes, doing operator shit.
Mhm.
And then 7 minutes later, it's like, yeah, it's breaking firing pins and the bolt looks like shit. You just did a 2-minute promo video about, that made me think it's not bad. And then like 8 minutes later, we're getting into the problems with it. Like in comparison, I think it's regular guy training. Somebody sent me this video the other day. He did a video talking about how the PSA 103 was dog shit in one of his classes. And he started like within 30 seconds, like, hey, just going to say this thing was not good for XYZ. So, I appreciate that kind of honesty up front rather than let's do a 2-minute sizzle reel and then we'll go into like the problems we had with the gun.
Well, and I fall victim to too. I watched Grant Thumb. I watched the 2-minute intro where you're like, oh, that's some cool shit. Then when he starts talking, you turn it off because you don't want. It's like, cool. I don't want to listen to a man talk to me anymore. I already have my boner. I don't need it anymore. Right. And so it's. I mean, it's one of those. It's definitely purpose driven, like to do those big flashy intros.
Yeah, and I'm not calling guys. I call them professional entertainers.
Yeah,
I'm not calling them shills. I'm not calling them liars.
Mm-hmm.
He was completely honest in that video, but his job is to entertain you, and he's showing you a product while he's entertaining you. That makes you want to say, you know what, I'll buy that. Like he did the PSA Freedom Line video, like I want to say about a year or two ago, and he was, in my opinion, he was completely honest in that. But I did like a whole breakdown of it just because I'm a marketing nerd.
Yeah.
Like when I looked at it, he had like, I want to say 4 million views on that video. And I just did a sampling of the comments. He had something like 5,000 comments, and I counted them up. There's something like 500 of them. Yes, I did count them. 500 were positive. Say, that's not bad. I'd buy that. So, if you extrapolate that, I mean, even 5% of 4 million views of people saying like, yeah, that's not bad. I'd buy that. That's a lot of guns that guy sold with that video, even being honest. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's all about product placement, and it's all about just, even if it's a terrible review, it's still getting the product name out there.
Yeah. And it looks flashy for like 3.5 minutes.
Yeah. And like the Jackal video that Grand Thumb, and I hate to pick on Grand Thumb, but
he's
the
an
Jackal,
easy target.
It is, right? I mean, because once you're that high elevated, it's easy to kind of go after him. But he did the Jackal video, and I have people that I talk to at PSA because I am affiliate with them and I do videos for them from time to time. I try to be as transparent and honest as possible, but talking with those individuals, I know that the next day PSA was completely sold out of Jackals after Grand Thumb dropped that. I don't remember who I was talking to, but I think it was on the podcast. We were talking about
Matt.
Maybe. I think it was at the Shit Show Extravaganza with Matt.
Okay.
Just this recent one, we were talking. No, it was Joe from Firearm Freedom.
Okay.
He said that he worked in a gun store, and he knew exactly who these big name YouTubers. He knew exactly what kind of video they just produced because they would get phone calls about, hey, do you have this or do you have that? And he's like, oh well, Admin or Grand Thumb or Demolition Ranch must have done a video, on whatever, So
that's actually a great marketing strategy that is thought up. Do a gun store and only stock the stuff that Admin Results and Grand Thumb teases about. Like, hey, come Sunday, I'm going to do a video on this. Just go buy all that stock and then sell it for 30% more than.
I'm not a lawyer, but that's insider trading. That might be illegal in your state. I don't know.
I'm just gonna say I'm a congressperson, and it's okay.
Like I said, I don't mean to beat up on those guys. I'm just telling it the way it is. There's just so much, commercialization and marketing, and some of the stuff we're marketing just doesn't work. It's not good.
Yeah.
When I buy a gun for $700 and I got to send it in for the lifetime warranty 3 times in the first 2,000 rounds, that's not good. Even if it's a range toy, that's unsatisfactory. So
it doesn't inspire confidence.
No, exactly. And then, when, and I understand it, I'm in manufacturing. I know how it works. I know benchmarking for quality standards, we're probably measuring, how many guns are returned, based on how many guns are in the field. You want to keep it about 1%. Like, I get all that. But at the same time, if you're putting out, 8,000 AKs AKs a month, and 1% of that is like what? What's 1% of that? 80?
80. Yep.
Yeah. So you're just, as a consumer, you're just keeping your fingers crossed. You're not one of the 80 month they just got a bad gun.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
And I understand like every company has quality issues. I'm not debating that at all, but I just feel like, you know, your odds of getting one of the 80 is higher with PSA.
Not
That's
Glock
my own,
though.
Perfection. It's on the box.
It's on the box.
It's on the box. Perfection.
yeah.
Yeah.
As a Glock certified armorer, I can tell you that it is perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm legally obligated to say that, or I'll
You
get
are.
sued.
Well, and
Gaston's Glock.
We touched on that before. I mean, if you're talking a Glock or a Glock like clone, like the Dagger, I don't agree with the Dagger, but they're easy enough to work on. You got a bad barrel, you can switch the barrel out easy. Same thing with the ARs. You got the $400 Freedom Line ARs. You got something bad on there, you could probably change it out yourself. I get it, but when you're talking the Kalashnikovs, you got to, there's a lot of skill, a lot of tools involved in fixing a Kalashnikov on your own. So it's probably not good to get a turd, or something with questionable quality right out of the box.
Yeah. Well, and here's a question for you that has been kicking around in my head for like the past couple of weeks since we've been trying to get you on here to record is, so we think about the imported AKs, whether it's the Wassers or the WBPs or even the FB Rodhams, all of those imported ones. Those, for the most part, I don't know about WBP, but for the main ones that we typically think about, even like the Arsenals, those typically come from like a state-sponsored factory, right? Where the country dumped millions of dollars into this factory to produce firearms for their military.
Yeah, the Soviets.
Right, exactly. And eventually, after the Soviet Union fell, they then turned to the West and it's like, oh, well, we can just ship them over there and sell them. So you have that component working for, let's say, just even the Wasser. If we just focus in the Wasser, the Kukier plant was state sponsored, opposed to, and obviously we're going to beat up PSA here. PSA is an upstart, right? So you have Kugier, who's been around for decades and has had, a windfall of money from the state, versus PSA, who is starting from the ground up. And no, they're not perfect, and they have problems. But at the same time, do you feel that we're comparing apples and oranges when it comes to the AK platform? Because Kugier is state sponsored and has been around for decades, and they know how to build it, versus the upstarts who are fumbling along and don't have the funding to basically produce the same thing.
I just want to put a quick point on this. Kugier doesn't make AKs; they make bicycle parts.
Bicycle parts.
They make bicycle parts.
That's correct.
Well, if we're talking 2020, 2021 PSA, I would agree with that statement a little bit. But we're talking, 2025 PSA. They've had how many guns in the field? They've had plenty of opportunity to fix their problems. They just don't.
Mm-hmm.
They acknowledged in 2022 with the Grantham Redemption AK-74, like, yeah, the bolts are crap. We know, we fixed it. It's all fixed now, guys. It's all well and good. You can pull a 74 off their line right now that probably has a bad bolt. You know what I mean? Like, they're not fixing their issues. That's my problem. Like, this whole, we use customer feedback to make the product better is, in my opinion, just a lark. It's not true. It's not happening. We're not seeing things improve. We're seeing it getting worse. I had a PSA 101 that lost headspace in 600 rounds. I've talked to 7 people that have lost headspace with their 101s in the first 1,000 rounds of owning it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely a problem for sure.
Yeah. So, they've had, in my opinion, PSA, I bought PSA Gen 3 when they came out. I was excited. I bought PSA Kalashnikovs before they were PSA. I had a DDI gun, Destructive Device Inc., back in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
was excited. I was excited for, again, me being a Kalashnikov guy after the miserable failure that was the RAS 47s. You know what I mean? Like, how miserable that was. And then DDI comes along with, hammer forged parts and nitrided barrels and gas block front sight combos and 4.5 millimeter folding stocks out of the box, like that were, I think I paid like $800 for mine, which again, 2014 was a lot of money for an AK, but at the same time, this was an American product that I felt like it was going to be great. And it was not bad. And I used to have a clip of Dave Fillers, who was the guy that started DDI, comparing, he had comments with Rob Ski back in like 2015 when they were trying to put out their folding stocks. And, Rob's like, when's this going to be in a market? And you see Dave Filler like, it's not ready yet. We want to get all the bugs worked out so it's perfect when it hits the market so people don't bash it. Whereas the mentality of PSA is like, just throw a bunch of shit to the wall and see what sticks, see if anybody complains, so I've been buying PSA AKs since before they were PSA. And the gun I bought in 2021 was a Gen 3, and I had high hopes for it. And it's just like, I tore it apart. The rivets weren't done right. They weren't dipping into their receivers using swell necks. Had prolapse on the bolt, where the firing pin is pushing the bolt face out. The headspace started to grow. It didn't lose headspace, but it was definitely growing. And I was like, what is this crap? So I started making videos on it and getting a lot of hate. And then it's just like, I get my hands on more PSA guns from people wanting their guns fixed. And it didn't matter the production date, whether it was 2021, 2023, 2025. It's the same issues over and over again. So they've got plenty of data at this point, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Sure.
I can't back that up, but we're just still not fixing our issues.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. How are you measuring? You've said it several times that the headspace is growing. How do you go about to measure that? If there's people out there who are concerned about it,
well, you have what's called a no-go gauge, and then you have a field gauge. So when you build to a no-go gauge, and that should be the tightest headspace. So if I could put a no-go gauge in and it starts to turn, it's starting to grow headspace. So like when I first get a gun, I put the no-go gauge in just to see if it turns. So like my PSA Gen 3 that I had back in 2021, put the headspace gauge in, fresh out the box. It was dynamite. That's one thing that they do very well. I always give credit where credit's due. Their headspace out of the box is amazing, and their barrel pins are immaculate. So they have no problem there. But after, I think I got 7,000 rounds on that. So I started testing after like 2,000 rounds, and I can see that visually that it's starting to turn a little bit more than it did when it first came out of the box.
Okay.
So 5,000 rounds, it's almost turned on it, right? Like, it's growing. And that growth usually comes from either a barrel pin that's like jacked up, which their barrel pins are immaculate, or it comes from peening of the bolt and peening of the locking lugs on the trunnion itself. So it's like there's a problem with their core parts that needs to be addressed. Like, not like it would be nice if they could address it. No, it needs to be addressed, because like I said before, you got crappy core parts, you got a crappy gun, and there's nothing you can do to make that better. The only thing you could do is to not shoot it.
Yep. And one of the other things that I wanted to revisit real quick is because this kind of goes back to a video that you did, I think just last week, just a few days ago. You were talking about like the sure shot rails and stuff like that, and they're not holding zero. And when you say they're not holding zero, you're specifically meaning if you were to put a red dot on that, not just like an IR laser or a laser or anything like that.
Yeah, red dot. It'll start drifting almost immediately. Like you put, you'll get a couple rounds on target, then you start, like mine kept drifting up and to the right, or up to the left, excuse me, at 50 yards.
Yeah. Okay.
I put it on a AIM 74. I put it on a Pioneer on 5.56, which the barrel was AKM profile. I put it on a Wasser. Now, these are all guns that I had Ultimax on as like a control. With an Ultimac, fine. You know, we're staying on target. It's all fine. You switch it over to the $550 Sure Shot, we're drifting. You know,
Yeah, right.
it's not good.
Right. And the reason why I bring it up is because you had done a video discussing the new the Zenico clone handguard from 1791.
Sure.
And you had mentioned Clay and myself's video discussing it, and just by happenstance, we had both planned on releasing that video on the same day. We had no intention on doing that intentionally. Allow myself to introduce myself. But you had talked about, you know, that it wouldn't hold zero, that you were concerned that it wouldn't hold zero.
Yeah, I don't have any hands on it, but just
Sure.
what I saw from Clay's video and what I know about Zenico, Clay's saying it moves, it wobbles just a little bit. Like if it wobbles a little bit, it's probably not going to hold zero very well.
Right.
That's my concern. And it's $190 for something that wobbles a little bit, and you got to worry about headspace. It's just, if somebody wants to buy it, great, go for it. I'm not going to call you an idiot. I'm just saying it's not in my wheelhouse. Not for $190. I don't know how much it is. I'm just going off the price when they were the Tribe rails.
Yeah. So their release date is supposed to be here in about 15 days is when they're really supposed to be doing, when 1791 is going to release them. And, you and I have discussed this back and forth about those. One of the things that I will say is, and I talked about it in my video, which I don't know if you watched the entire thing or not, but
I did.
Oh, okay. One of the things with my SLR 106 is that it would not fit like Clay's. Clay said his just dropped in.
Yeah, it clicked in.
Mm-hmm. Mine did not. When I would now the lug on the handguard that would fit into the receiver, that slid in, yes. But the handguard retainer would not latch on. I couldn't.
Well, the one that's important is the lugs that go into between your trunnion and your receiver. That's the important one, because that's the one that's going to hold zero. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when you see, the lovely Anastasia on Zenico English, go check it out. She's amazing. That's why when you see her installing that thing, she's pounding it with a hammer, because you're trying to force form that aluminum into the steel trunnion. That's how you hold the zero. So if you could just push it in at all, it's not going to hold.
Yeah. And, I've got my Sporter 1 on my 107, and I didn't know it any better at the time. And I was going by recommendations from our friend Ashley.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, you're going to have to fit it, and I was like, what does that mean? And she's like, well, you're probably going to have to file down a little bit on that lug to get it to fit into the receiver. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's what I did. And then later I find out, no, you're supposed to beat it in. But even still, I was like, how am I supposed to beat it in if the aluminum is the exact same width of the receiver? That doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, they tell you, keep in mind. So they have the AK-101, the AK-100 series in Russia. Mm-hmm. These are Russian products. So these are set up for AK-101 specs. So when you're dealing with the wide variety of AK specs out there, you got, the Bulgarian specs, you got, the Romanian specs, the Polish specs, they're all different. The Hungarian trunnions are a completely different setup. You can't even get it in there. Right. So, where Zenico is coming from is you shouldn't file it. You should never file it. If you're going, and I've put Zenico on Segias before, which are the AK-100 series.
Right.
Yeah. Those things go in like a dream because they're set up for it. But like when I put one on my Wasser 10, I beat it in there and it deformed the receiver, and it was crooked. So it was clocked about 5 degrees, I would say about 3 degrees to the left. So when I put my optics mounting on there, guess what? My optics is now like 15 degrees clocked, so saying that you shouldn't file it. Yeah. If you're going to like a Sega or something like that, or some sort of, maybe a Russian, gun, yeah, sure, don't file it. be a little bit of filing involved if you're going to like a Romanian or a Bulgarian, something like that. Just enough to where you can get it in there, not enough to where it's an easy fit.
Yeah.
Now, Mario has a great story where somebody took a Zeneco and they tried to install it on like a Yugo M70.
Oh.
And the guy brought it in. He's like, I don't know how to do this shit. This, blah, blah, blah. And Mario was like, Mario tells a story. He was like, yeah, you're an idiot. Just give it to me. I'll fix it. Like, I don't want to hate on you, bro, but just stop.
Just, yeah, exactly. I would not pretend to know anywhere near as much as you when it comes to AKs or even Clay or Mario or any of those guys. But I do at least know that, Yugo pattern and the quote unquote Russian pattern is completely different.
It's not going to work.
Yeah. So, but after watching your video that you did about that handguard, is I've now gotten to a point where I'm like, I definitely need to check to see if there's going to be an issue with the zero on my example, seeing that I put it on a Bulgarian version because there was it wouldn't fit putting it on. So I had to take the handguard, put it into the freezer for an hour. And then once I was able to take it out and put it in, then it fit, no problem. So I would imagine that once it heats up to room temperature, it expands, and then that kind of locks it up a little bit. So I'm definitely going to have to test it to see, now that it's expanded and set in place, whether or not that zero would be affected, yes or no.
Again, if it holds zero, I'm happy for you. If it holds for somebody else, it happy. I don't have my hands on it to really say yes, it will not hold zero.
Yeah.
Just what I'm seeing is like I'm suspicious, and I'd be surprised if it does.
Mm-hmm.
And for $190 or whatever they're going to charge, I'd want it to hold zero. I want it to actually be a rail.
Right. And this is also information that Justin, the gentleman that I talked to at SHOT Show about this,
Sure.
This was stuff that he wanted to know as well, is, what needs to be changed? Where are the faults? What can we do to improve? Which is why he handed one out to myself and Clay and Kyle from Gear Know How. Really oddly, he put his on a barrel and it fit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now
that was interesting.
Well, I mean, the barrel rifle, the lower hand guards will fit. It's when you get up to the upper hand guards, because they have a single piece that goes to the. I'm having trouble describing it, but
yeah.
Like the AKM, for example, is like just the lower hand guard retainer, and then you have a whole gas tube on top. The barrel has like a retainer that retains not only the lower hand guard but the actual tube. The actual gas tube, which if you want to put like an Ultimac on a barrel, you're going to have to chop that in half, which I don't recommend since they are like $1,600.
Yeah. I actually just ended up today, as a matter of fact, putting 250 rounds through my barrel that I just got. It's been on my wish list for years now, and I finally just went ahead and sprung for it and got one. And they're definitely interesting rifles, to say the least. They're different in for me, anyways, different in a good way. Pretty interesting lineage with it as well. So, but anyway, with that being said, we've kind of crested.
I actually got two questions.
You got two questions?
I got two questions that do not relate to AKs.
Okay,
Sure.
good.
So
Shoot.
we alluded to it in the pre-show. Emo's Pizza.
Oh.
So talk to me. Tell me about Emo's Pizza. Like what is Emo's Pizza?
Well, for those of you who don't know, Emo's Pizza is like a St. Louis area only pizza, and they have this special cheese. I think it's not provolone. What is it? Novella cheese, which has this like funky taste to it. Like it's a very distinct taste.
It's a very distinct taste.
So like if you're from St. Louis, it's one of those things that if you go home to St. Louis, you got to have the Emo's pizza. I'm not that guy though, because I grew up right next to Papa John's.
Okay.
So like when I say grew up, like I spent 22 years of my life walking over to Papa John's to get pizza. So I never really got into Emos. My wife loves Emos, but I'm just not. I could care less. I want Papa John's. Like just give me a Papa John's with that pepper in there, and I'm a happy guy.
So my two guys on my team for a while were from St. Louis and talked about Emo's Pizza all the time. They went back and forth about it. Yeah. Kansas City has got a few Emo's Pizzas now. They started branching out to the other side of Missouri. Mm-hmm. So I got to try it this weekend, and boy, let me tell you, the memes of a saltine cracker with weird cheese is 100% accurate. So
again, like I just it's a square cut pizza that's thin crust with a weird cheese on it. It's like, I'll just go to Papa John's. I'm cool. I've seen my cousin is a big dude. I'm talking he's 6'6". I think he's close to 400 pounds.
Yeah,
like he's not fat. He's built like he's like Andre the Giant. Mm-hmm. I seen that dude eat a whole Emo's pizza in 3 blocks. Like he went to go pick up the pizzas, and we ordered 4, and he came back with 3. It's like, how did you eat a whole pizza in 3 ass blocks? He's like, I'm hungry. Like, I know shit.
Well, I feel like Emo's is definitely one of those. Like, if they said, hey, you have to eat a large pizza in 30 minutes, that one's doable, except for the weird fucking cheese, man. Like,
yeah, I can't do the cheese. It's not my thing.
Yeah,
and they sell salads too. Like, I remember my cousin got a salad. Like my cousin's wife got a salad, and she was just like, it was like the traditional like pizzeria salad. It was just like a half head of lettuce and like a whole ass tomato with some Italian dressing on it. Like you're eating that, like,
and that's warm from
that's groceries, Like, but here's a Kansas City story for you. So
okay, yeah.
Just wrap it up. I'm a big Cal Ripken Jr. fan, the Baltimore Oriole guy that went like 3,000 games straight.
Yeah.
So the year he was going to break that record, me and my dad went out to Kansas City to see him at Royal Stadium.
Yeah.
And we went to a barbecue place afterwards. And my dad was like very peculiar about like being a messy eater. So when he brought the barbecue sauce out, he said, no sauce.
Oh.
And it was like the record skipped and everybody's staring at us. Like we were like in a bad, we grew up in East St. Louis. So we're used to like hood. And this made us like nervous. Yeah. So it was like
Arthur Bryant.
I would say it's probably Arthur Bryant.
Yeah, probably. I wasn't that familiar with the area. And it was like the needle skipped and the guy goes, what do you mean no sauce? We're known for our sauce. People drive from hundreds of miles around for our sauce. He's like, well, we didn't, motherfucker. Just bring it with no sauce. And I'm just like 15, like, Dad, please.
Just let the man sauce it.
Just get the sauce on the side, and let's not get murdered in this very nice restaurant.
We joked about all the time on our team was the St. Louis. You have like Kansas City barbecue, you have Carolina barbecue, you have Texas barbecue, you have Chicago pizza, Detroit pizza, New York pizza. Everyone has their big thing. But St. Louis has
toasted ravioli,
and Budweiser.
Oh, yeah.
And that was about it. So it's
okay.
always
here's another dad story.
Okay.
So he always drank Budweiser because we were from the St. Louis area. So he started working at this shop, and this was in the early '80s. And they had a Stag brewery. I don't know if you're familiar with Stag beer. Mm-hmm. It's a gold can with like a stag on the front with red lettering. It is horrible.
Yeah.
But they had a brewery in the neighborhood he was working in. So he goes with the guys after work to like this trailer bar. It's like a mobile home. They turned into a bar. Mm-hmm. And all the people that work in that neighborhood work at the Stag brewery. So him being from St. Louis, he goes, I'll have a Budweiser. And he's like, the David Allan Coe on the jukebox skipped, and everybody stares at him. He's like, we drink Stag here, sir. And he's like, okay, I think I don't want to have to fight my way out of this trailer bar just so I can get my Budweiser. So I guess I'm drinking Stag today.
We keep Budweiser on tap for profiling purpose.
Yeah, exactly. It was funny. It was like he came home and he's just like, man, like his girlfriend at the time, she was Haitian, and he's like, hey, whatever you do, do not order Budweiser. And she's like, why would I order that horse piss? And all of a sudden, then they started fighting. Anyway, like when you said Budweiser, just immediately thought of that story of him ordering a Budweiser at a Stag place, and they, the rednecks, and they're about to kick the crap out of him.
That happens surprisingly. We have a couple local breweries, and the amount of times I've heard somebody ask, "What's your closest thing to Busch Light from a brewery?"
Well, it's crazy. If you go to St. Louis to the
Yeah.
original like Anheuser-Busch,
Mhm.
they do a tour.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't even make Budweiser there. They make Shock Top. They make like the craft beers.
Yeah.
So like they give you a free beer like when you get
Yep.
the tour done, and you have
Mhm.
to drink like Shock Top, what they make there.
Mhm.
So it's like you're doing the Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch tour, and you don't even get a Budweiser. You get a Shock Top.
That's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've actually done that tour. My aunt lives in the St. Louis area, and when I was, I was in middle school. I don't remember how old I was, but we did the tour. Now, naturally, I didn't get a beer at the end of it, but
Yeah.
my mom did, and it was Budweiser then, I
Mhm.
think.
Yeah.
But
Well, they moved all the production out to Ohio, I believe. But it was just funny. Like when you start
Yeah.
the tour, they say like, hey, if you're just here for the free beer, go over there. If you actually want the tour, come with me. And you see like 70% of the group just peel off just to get a free beer.
Yeah.
I actually thought that the tour was interesting. So yeah.
It's definitely interesting. I mean, this was before AnBev bought it when I
Mhm,
did the tour. So they were still doing like the Beechwood aged barrels and all that stuff. So, there's definitely a better quality of beer coming out of there. Since AnBev took over, it's been kind of,
It's all PSA's fault.
Yeah.
It-
Well, I'm gonna finish off my Michelob
Yeah,
Ultra
yeah,
here.
yeah.
I'm saying I got a Coors Light here, so I'm not much better. No, I'm a Hams drinker, so
I was gonna
I would
say,
say I don't.
I mean-
I get the thing for the Pabst reject.
I was going to call it Schlitz. I couldn't
Oh,
remember
no,
what it is that you're
Schlitz, no
drinking.
Hams.
I don't drink anymore. When I did, it was all Guinness. Like I just drank Guinness just
Oh,
because
yeah.
when I was in the Marines, my roommate was a stone cold alcoholic. If I had any beer in the fridge, he would drink it. And I found that the only beer he would not drink was a stout. So I just like stocked, like that's just what I started drinking, just so this asshole wouldn't drink all my beer.
No, that's surviving and adapting.
Yeah,
actually,
yeah, it's great until you realize you're drinking a 5,000 calorie stout.
if it's good for the Irish, they're
They're wiry.
they're feisty and they're young and vibrant. They drink only stouts, right?
Well, yeah, I mean when you're running, 5 to 15 miles every other day, you doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
as soon as you stop doing that, and you're still drinking the double pork chops in a bottle. It's like, okay, I'm getting really chunky really fast.
So the second thing we went on the tangent I wanted to when we talked to Emo's Pizza. Second thing, tell us about how you landed on the name M26 Lemon
Grenade.
Lemon
Yeah.
Grenade. How did that?
I hate Instagram.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
I hate like social media. I hate like all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I had like when I first started Instagram like back in 2015, solely for the purpose of just trying to figure out the gun trends because, I just been running like the same old A2 style AR for 10, 15 years, whatever it was.
The guns version.
Yeah. So I just got on just to see what the latest trends were, and I started off as Ruthless Warfare.
Mhm.
Because that was my wife's nickname, was Ruthless. Like whenever we get in the car, I call her, here he comes, Billy Ruthless, driving like a maniac. So that was just kind of like if you see any of my guns on Instagram, it says Ruthless. That's just like my nickname for her.
Mhm.
So I spray painted on stuff to drive her crazy. Anyway, so that was like my original name, and I think I racked up like 4,000, 5,000 followers with that name. And then I just got totally fed up with Instagram and all the this was 2016 when all the politics were going on and a lot of psychos coming out of the woodwork and all this shit. So I deleted that account. I started a new one just to keep in touch with people like Ashley and friends I got from Instagram. So I would change my name every 6 months so that people didn't know who I was. So I had like goofy names every time, like Ghost of Christmas Kalash and the Kalash Country Gentleman, and just always like Kalash, like hidden in there somewhere in a clever way. And then who was it? A friend of mine, M27 firing device.
There it
Oh
is.
yeah,
Yep,
there it is.
there it
Yep.
is.
Yeah,
That's
so
what I
he was a
figured.
friend of mine, and then I think his name was Pineapple Grenade. He was a friend of mine.
Yep.
So I went to change my name again, and I was like, I just happened to have like 2 messages in my DMs from them, like stacked on top of each other. And I was trying to think of like what name to call myself. I was like, M26 Lemon Grenade. That sounds like fun. that was just going to be like my name for like 6 months, and then I did a podcast with Henry at 9-hole reviews about my time in Iraq, and then like he talked me into like expanding that into like a YouTube where I'm talking about my experiences in Iraq, and I just kind of got stuck with it. So if people, brand recognition, all that stuff, if you want people to keep coming back to your YouTube and stuff, you got to keep the same name. So it's like, it looks like I'm stuck with M26 Lemon Grenade.
Yeah, so like I didn't know the villain story behind it, but it really felt like it was like M57 electrical firing device that we have at home.
Yeah.
No, it was just like I just happened to have a DM from M57 firing device and Pineapple Grenade like stacked on top of each other, and it was just like, light bulb, M27 Lemon Grenade. And then again, I was just planning on keeping that for like 6 months and then changing it so people couldn't find me. And then the thing with Henry happened, and then I actually started my YouTube just talking veteran stuff. I didn't even want to do gun stuff because I didn't want any part of it. I was just doing like veterans, just trying to get that, telling my stories and all that stuff, just trying to get people to seek help that needed help. Like, look, I've been in the shit, I've seen brains on the sidewalk. I've picked up my buddy's leg that got blown off by an IED. I've tried to kill myself. It's not pleasant. So if you need help, I'm telling you to go get help. It's okay. That's how I started off. And then once somebody threatened my family, I just shut it all down. I was like, F this, F this. Then I just came back with just gun stuff just because it was fun. It's my hobby and I enjoy talking about it.
That's good. And I honestly want to say I do appreciate the fact that you have come back, because you have hopefully this comes out the right way.
Oh boy, here we go.
No, it never does, right? But you have convictions and you stand by them in a way that, as you've mentioned in our DMs, it's like it comes off the wrong way sometimes, but at the same time you stick to your guns regardless. And I think that is a perspective that people should take more time to listen to, because I've disagreed with some of the things that you say, but I still continue to come back to listen to what you have to say, because you have the experience. You've been around a long time. As you've said in this podcast, you've done these things. You see headspace growing, and that's a problem, and people don't know that type of stuff, So it's great that you did decide to come back, and you have a voice that it sometimes goes against the stream, and that's okay. I think it's needed.
And the main thing is, I get it. Nobody wants to be told that their investment sucks. So you just bought like $1,000 PSA Gen 5 and you slapped on a $500 like rail onto it. And then I come along and say, yeah, your PSA guns are trash and that rail you bought doesn't hold zero. I understand why you're mad at me. I get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm still going to say it because I want somebody that's, every day somebody logs on to YouTube and tries to find some information on this commercial product that they want to spend their hard-earned money on. And if all they're seeing are these like, professional, showmen, these professional entertainers with their sizzle reels, they're going to think like, hey, this is a good gun. Look at it go for 2 minutes straight. I just want to offer a counterbalance. Like, no, these are the problems. These are the problems you're going to have. And that's all I want to do. And unfortunately, like, I don't want to keep picking on PSA, but they got the Scientology cult going on. Like the backlash from that is just unbelievable. Another interesting one is School of the American Rifle. He's somebody pointed out he's like my counterpart in the AR world, and I checked out his Instagram and all that stuff, and it's like, yeah, he's going through exactly what I go through. he's pointing out the obvious flaws in the product, and people just like vilify him. It's like, look, I didn't make the gun. I'm just showing you what's wrong with it.
Yeah. And
I'm not calling you an idiot. I'm just saying this is what's wrong with the gun, so you can make an informed decision.
Yeah. And he's doing postmortems on not just PSAs or Rugers or anything like he
everything.
does stuff like Sons of Liberty's Gun Works. He's done BCMs. He's done Daniel Defenses, and they fail,
Yeah.
And he explains why. Here's the reasons why they failed. And he's just putting data out there. He's not trying to trash them or anything. He's just like, okay, this one failed. Let's talk about why it failed. Here you go.
Well, it's like I have guns with key mod rails on it because I've been around for 20 years. So
which is garbage. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, it is.
My rifle's less chemo on it.
Well, it's funny. Like if I post a video, like a picture on Instagram of like my key mod gun that I've had since 2014 or 13. Like, oh, look at that dick mod. It's like, yeah, there's nothing wrong. Yeah, it is. It does look like dicks, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's going to hold my grip and my flashlight just fine. Like, I'm not going to go and run out and get like a whole new rail system for $250 just so that you don't call it dick mod.
Yeah. But it's funny because I know that early in GOWAT, you had special forces, regardless if that's Navy SEALs or Green Berets or whomever, they were like literally taping lights onto their handguards, right?
I mean, when I did the invasion in 2003, I mean, we had M16A2s with the plastic handguards.
Yeah,
we were taping shit to our guns all the time. We didn't even have optics. We're like, all right, we got to do some building clearing at night. Tape your mag lights on your handguards. So get out the rigger's tape and tape it up. And, all right, we're ready to go, boys.
Well, if anything is like a tribute to the hose clamp, zip tie, duct tape thing was Brandon Herrera doing that video of he like taped a scope to an SKS and shot it and still held zero pretty okay. I mean, like there is a science to it, and there's reason why people have been doing it since like Mogadishu. They were doing it.
I mean, going back to what you were saying about you pulled out your revolver and everybody dogging you. It's like my dad carried a 357 Astra snub nose everywhere, and when I started getting into guns, I was like, why don't you upgrade to a 9mm pops? And he says, well, if I have to dump some crackhead and I got to get the hell out of there, I don't want to have to pick up shell casings. Like, oh, okay. You have a reason for it. I get it. So, but that worked for him for, 30 years.
Yeah.
You don't need the fanciest thing. Like I don't carry a fancy gun. I don't even carry one with a red dot on it. I have a $400 Glock 26 that I've had for 12 years that my buddy Cerakoted just because he wanted something to practice on. It's fine. It works. I train with it. I work with it, make sure I know how it works. And if I do have to use it and that goes into an evidence locker for 5 years, I'm out $400.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So I wish my revolver cost. This one's got.
I've got a couple revolvers that I think I picked up for like $250 back in the day when nobody wanted revolvers. Everybody wanted Glocks, and they're unloaded. They're like Smith and Wessons and all that stuff. Like I'll buy it. I don't care.
No, I did the dumb thing. I bought one of the Lipsy exclusive ones. So it's a fantastic gun. I absolutely love it, but it's like just shy of 800 for a pocket 6-shot revolver. So
yeah, I used to carry a Savage 1907, a 32 ACP just for shits and giggles. I mean, that thing's a piece of shit. Like, but the old saying, like, crappy gun is better than no gun. The
rule one gun. Rule one, have a gun.
Have a gun, some sort. So.
We have like 2 minutes before we hit our cap time, so I'm gonna have to
wrap it up. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna have to cut you off. I'm sorry, man.
No, you're fine. I'll talk forever if you let me.
No, yeah. We surely do appreciate it, and again, thanks for your flexibility on the scheduling and all that jazz.
No
I don't know if you care to have us do it or not, but we'll put all your information down in the description so people can find you and follow you. Again, we do appreciate your content and everything that you're putting out there, because while there are a number of people out there who are just influencers, you're trying to bring reason, to the world, and some people don't like that. They just want to be happy with their pee poo poo that they just bought for $15,000. So whatever that is. But again, we do appreciate you swinging by. And Jefe, what do you got? You got anything? You
want to do dad advice?
Yeah. You want to do some dad advice?
Yeah.
You got 2 of them now. So what have you learned?
Let's give our guests the first shot.
Oh, okay. So we'll pitch it over to you there, M26. We last 30 seconds. We like to let our guests pass on some type of advice, that some folksy wisdom, if you've got anything.
In 100 years, nobody's going to care what you did today, but your family will always miss you. So don't let what's happening today bother you to a point where your family misses you forever.
Man,
there you go.
There you go, man.
Wow.
That's
on that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. What do you got? You got anything? You're not going to top it.
I'm not going to top it. So use ChatGPT to make workout programs. Stop being lazy and fat. That's about it. The best. I got distracted here. I just saw someone sent me and I think I put it in our group chat. Spore came out with a revolver like a modernized revolver carbine. I'll have to show you this here.
No.
So
goodness. Okay. So. Well, my thing is spring is on its way, man. Get outside, get some vitamin D, take the dogs out for a walk. Just be outside. Enjoy your life, because that's, as M26 was just saying, man. That's all we got. No one's going to care in 100 years. So we do appreciate you guys swinging by. If you've made it this far to the podcast, thank you so much. But we are going to go ahead and close it out, and we will catch you guys next time. But don't forget to live, laugh, and LARP. Bye, y'all.
Yep. Bye-bye.